for that. Go ahead and ask for approval or modifications to the June 16th meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. And so move on to the June 12th minutes for the work session.
I have one addition to June 12th. If you look on page 1, where Ms. McFadden introduced a member of the public, etc., I'd like to add a sentence to say also present was Ashley Goodrich, Senior Planner of Infrastructure from BJWSA.
Okay. Any other comments? Take a motion.
I'll make a motion
I'll
with
second
that change.
with that change.
Motion is second. All in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion approved. We have any questions related to military operations?
Can I just ask one question? Ms. Anderson, did you vote on these?
No, I'm abstaining as I wasn't at the meetings, so I doesn't.
So, but we still have 5, so that's fine.
Anything online for military operations?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move on. I think I'll go to public comments. I know it's not on here, but let's move on to public comments because I did receive a letter from Graham Trask concerning the demolition clause. And so I wanted to allow him to address that if he is online.
Mr. Tomey, before you proceed, can I raise a procedural point?
Yes.
At our work session that we had jointly with council last week, we discussed and everybody agreed that provisions related to the historic district were not before council and were not part of the code amendments that were at first reading. The draft that we have before us here contains portions of 9.10 and 9.11. I asked staff about this ahead of time and was told that, oh, those are the old sections. Well, a cursory review of the allegedly old sections, that is incorrect. There are changes in there from the code as it exists today. I think this is a huge problem of potential confusion for council, for the public, and for us to even have this in there. My suggestion at the work session was that it needed to be removed. So my suggestion is that we clarify today that none of those provisions are before us right now or council at their next meeting. And I suggest to staff that that issue be put in capital letters in their introductory materials and also noted in the agenda for the council meeting and possibly even, redact it completely from the draft or gray it out somehow so we don't spend a lot of time talking about issues related to those code changes that are not before council or before us right now.
Thank you. And I do agree with you. I think that I'm going to want to have some clarification from Kurt on this. However, this is a public comment and it's related to the old code, I think, and
That's fine.
doing a temporary on it. So I'd like to at least hear Graham on this subject matter. Any other comments or objections?
I just want to clarify that the materials that I'm talking about are on pages 19 to page 26 of 38 on the draft. That's the stuff that should be removed or blacked out or something.
Thank you. Is Graham online?
Yes, sir.
Graham, would you like to make a comment on your letter?
He is muted.
Is he there or not?
He's there and he has permission to speak. His mic is just muted. I can't forcibly unmute it. It has to be him.
Anyway, we can see Mr. Trask on our screens if he starts speaking.
If he turns his camera on, otherwise you just see his name on the screen.
Okay.
He may be having a technical difficulty.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and move on then. I think we all have received a copy of the letter that Graham has sent out. And it's certain.
I didn't get it.
Give it a copy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You get it.
I thought Kurt sent that out to everybody. Okay. So we'll move on without that, I guess. Basically, what he has, the demolition sunset code amendment can be discussed and passed separately and independently from the Northwest Quadrant discussions. I urge you to notify the planning board of my request and respectfully request the planning board get a sunset demolition permit code amendment on the city council's agenda. So that's something that we can take up at our work session. And we'll just move on past that now. That he has notified us that this is something that he would like to see done. So one of the things I would like to do before we move on to our next agenda item under old business is to find out, Kurt, if I could, where are we with the removing of those sections from 7 and 9? Is that something that the city council is planning on doing or not planning on doing, and how is that being handled?
Just before, I've been informed that Mr. Trask has re-raised his hand. So when you're ready.
Did you want to give him another shot?
Okay, Graham, if you're on.
And he is still muted.
Okay, we're gonna move on. I'm sorry, go ahead, Kurt.
So you're asking specifically about,
Yes,
um. Or related to design and stuff? You were cleaning up all the variance and design exception language for the whole code, if you remember that. That's what really, it was, I guess, page 21 of 38 in your packet. So it used to state, I think 35%, and there was some slightly different language there. Power that the HRB had. This was a little more permissive power to grant a design exception, but And the other thing was, you did move the, COAs as you did all other permits from, you shortened the time span, right, for COAs to basically, just 3 years, I believe, extension. So those were the two things. I mean, if that's the will of the planning commission, we can make that as a motion to remove that language, I think, and send that to the city council. I think there is a little bit of confusion with that.
Yeah, I think there is still confusion on, we keep telling them that we're in review with a special committee related to those historic, sections. And I don't feel that we've gotten a response necessarily from city council. And so I think that maybe if you could approach them and find out if that's something they would like to remove. The only other way is that it gets approved in second reading, but without the modifications that we're going to be making to it actually showing up.
Well, I think from the meeting, it was, I think we kind of we made that change because we were changing all the variants and appeals, and it was pretty minor change, right? So just to be on the safe side, it might be best just to make a motion to just remove that language from chapter 9. Any changes to the historic preservation code. So that would be 9.10, and then from the table of 9. So let's just write this down. It's 9.14, change to the table for a COA. That was to go to, it was 12 months up to 3 times. So there used to be 5 times. So you made a change to 3 times. That was a change. And then the changes to 9.10. Let's see what number that is. I think 9.102A3, which was design
page
exception.
are you
There
on?
was page 21 of 38. There was a few words that were changed there, removed for design exceptions. If you have your red line with you, just remove any changes to 9.10. That's basically the easiest way to do it, I think.
Kurt, there's a few other things that are changed.
Sure.
The charts are changed.
Yeah, and that's what I was listing, the
20 and 21.
1.4 was the chart.
I just think it's, if we're holding up on the historic portions, pending completion of the work of the subcommittee and then I guess the planning commission, it shouldn't be something that is even dealt with at all by amendment or otherwise on second reading relating to the other changes. It needs to be omitted. And I thought that was the consensus of council and the planning commission at the work session that was held just last week. So I really urge us to direct staff to take this out for now.
So I think you just need a motion to, not recommend, or motion it, recommended to the city councils. We'll get into the other motions to not recommend any changes to the certificate of appropriateness in 9.14. And I can restate this when you're ready to make motions at the end of the rest of it. And then any changes to 9.10. And again, those were very minimal changes to 9.10, but again, I think you're gonna have we'll be coming back in perhaps a different form, but
I don't understand the logic of making these minimal changes now and then re-reviewing and coming back later. It doesn't make logical sense to me, and
that's
it's
fine.
confusing to the public.
yeah, and I think we kind of forgot that we made the design exception change, so, but until it came up. But I think that's a sound
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that,
advice.
I think it's just been overlooked by city council that that's really where we're going. I know we've stated it in a number of meetings, but they've kind of agreed with us, but I think we need to take the step forward to actually formalize make a formalized, recommendation for that. So any other discussions from the board?
Are you ready to entertain a motion?
I am ready to entertain a motion.
I move that the planning commission recommend to the city council that they ignore in their entirety, sections 9.10 and 9.11 for purposes of second reading,
9.14 related to certificate of appropriateness.
and 9.14 relating to certificate. They completely ignore these sections for purposes of second reading and wait until they receive new recommendations after the subcommittee and the planning commission gives further consideration to those sections. That makes sense?
That Burke?
Yeah, I think, or if you would just want to omit maybe, or recommend to omit those changes, something that makes.
Just ignore those sections completely and not pass anything related to them.
Take them off the board.
Any other comments? I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. And that's unanimous, so we'll just go ahead and do that. The other thing that I'd like to do right now is I see that we don't have people here for the ADUs and STRs. I guess we probably just got it out too late because I know there's an awful lot of people that would like to speak in relation to those. So I will open that discussion when we get to it, but I think we're just going to have to reset that for another public meeting.
Would you like to go to chapter 7 now? And chapter-
Yes, please. Let's go ahead and go on to chapter 7 and 9. Start with 7.
Sure, and I think you have the letter on your dais there
Yes.
now. So if he gets a chance to speak, I'm sure we can hopefully that gets straightened out later. But first, I'd just like to welcome Ms. Anderson to the Planning Commission. Long time being on the other side, I'm sure, so it's but second, I guess try to explain why there was a delay in this. If you remember, we met with the joint session on Tuesday afternoon. And then we also met a little bit after that session and then met again with the chairman and the vice chairman to go over both Councilman Scoletti's and the other comments that came up in the joint session on Thursday afternoon. And so, Christopher and I have to really, commend Christopher for kind of going through the code and formatting it. So between the two of us, we've put this together in a very short amount of time. Hopefully we captured it all. And that was the reason for the delay. I know that we basically were going until 4 o'clock on Friday and all this stuff, just trying to make sure everything was correct. So I apologize for that, but to make this meeting, I think that was really just had to be with the circumstances that were met, in place. But with that, so what we did is a few things. So we went through all those comments, and from the meeting and the joint meeting, there was, I guess, 2 things that I think I got direction on, and that was basically to create a clean copy of the code with Scrivener's errors corrected, anything that was felt to be non-substantial, of which there were many, a few dozen that you'll see in your packet, items that were corrected that we felt were minor. I collated all those and put it in your packet in a memo, just so you can see what they were. And then 2, put together a set of motions, not put them in the code, but put together a set of motions that would go to second reading for the city council. So you'd be making the motion as a recommendation for that second reading that would go in August. And so those are also in a separate document. So you have the two, and, you know, the thought here is today is to explain those two things. And, you know, if some of, the items that you felt like were, more substantive than Scrivener's, you know, this, or vice versa, this would be the forum to, you know, basically make that formal recommendation to the city council. Then they'd be making the same motions on second reading, that they'd, be approving like a motion to change what was at first reading, for those substantive changes, and they just accept the Scrivener's, changes at first reading, which they could do after, you know, the ordinance was approved anyway. But so with that, we'll go over. Does that make sense to everybody? Again, I'm sorry that it took, you know, we basically were all hands on deck here for a few days, but, and thanks to Chairman Tomey and, Vice Chairman Barden-Werper for, you know, spending pretty much 4 or 5 hours going over all these, changes. So I think we were pretty comprehensive. And now that we've addressed the historic preservation, I think, you know, hopefully we've caught everything, but if we haven't, this is the time to bring it up because, it's a lot of stuff. So hopefully we caught it.
Kurt, I did not have time to read all this because
Sure.
of the lateness of it. And one thing that we did discuss, can you point me to, remember there was a discussion about whether or not there was a presumption of approval when, after, you know, after time passes, and there's no action by the planning commission. What is that section in this draft?
Ooh, that is, I don't think
Missing
we
not, and there
don't
was a
think
lot of
we,
discussion on it.
changed anything with that, but it's offhand. I don't remember, to be honest with you, offhand. It was something about tabling an item, is that right? And if it didn't get tabled, it would
Exactly.
be, but we made a change where we removed
Oh,
the 60
section, right,
days. And I think we wanted to keep that in there because we felt, and that was the discussion at the city council meeting or the joint meeting, that it was felt like it was necessary because you often, you know, often that the applicant maybe does not provide information, or there's information you desire, and it will often take more than 60 days. So we didn't want to have that conflict. Offhand, I just can't remember what that is, if it's where that was located. I'd have to spend a minute, but if you wouldn't mind going through the rest of it, so we don't get sidetracked, that would probably be helpful.
I believe we did address it, and
I thought we addressed it at the joint session as not wanting to change that.
Well, the problem was the red line did not have the word not, and the clean copy you told me had the word not.
Oh,
I was
okay.
reading everything on the phone, so I was having trouble.
Okay, that might have been. Maybe when we go through all this, I think we had it all highlighted, even the minor changes, so it should maybe come up. But if we could just stay on track, that's this, not to be rude, but it is a little hard to do this when, you know, we have to find a code reference without the reference. It's just a little hard, but if you just give us a second, let's look through it. I do remember, I think it was like maybe for streets or something like that. But, you know, I just, if anybody else can remember, feel free to, but, I know the clean reference had the not or the nor or the no or something on it, but is it okay if I go forward with everything?
yeah, let's just go forward with it and
Okay.
we will come back to it.
So we started with the improvement guarantees, section 7.15.a. We felt like this was a kind of a Scrivener's type of correction. There was a reference in the old code to the old final plat section. It was in chapter 9. And we just removed the reference. I think at the time we were doing the red lines, you know, we're still working on this and we decided, well, we should just remove the reference, but we put it back in. I think a reference is a kind of a minor.
What page are you
correction.
on, Kurt?
It's 7.15. And so, yeah, maybe I should just state the pages, but that's page 1, or actually not page 1, but that's
Page
page
4? Page 4. Page 4?
4. And as we're going through this, I'll probably remember what you were referencing, but right now, right now, my memory is, remember the discussion, I just don't remember the section. So if everybody feels like that's a Scrivener's error, is that, or a correction, just a correction to provide a reference? Hopefully, there's no need for a motion. That'd be
So
correct.
what exactly is the language on page 4 that you're talking about?
Sure. So if you see there's, prior to the approval of a final subdivision plat, section 7.5.5. There was no reference in there. It was removed. It used to be section 9. Remember, if you remember, we removed the final plat from section 9 for that reference and put it in chapter 7. So we were just re-providing that reference to the new section for final
You're
plats.
talking about in the very first line?
Yep.
Okay,
And so I think we felt like that was just a, kind of a clarification, a reference that would be a Scrivener's type of change. So hopefully everybody agrees with that. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Street infrastructure plan 2.1C1. 7.2.1C1. That's kind of the same.
page,
Page 5, that's kind of the same thing. So there was including as necessary improvement guarantees under the authority of section 7.15, the very last clause. That 7.15 as a reference was, it basically just said improvement guarantees before, so we added under the authority of section 7.1.5, which is where it's found. So we feel like that's just a clarification as well, that it's not really a substantive change, if that makes sense to everybody. So again, page 5, applicability, last clause of that paragraph. Okay. Next is street infrastructure plan, section 7.2.1. This is a lot, C2 to say, it's a lot to, there was a sentence that the administrator may permit modification of street improvement standards where the required street improvements are not in the opinion of the administrator, roughly proportionate to the impact, type, scale, and cost of the proposed development action. We just didn't feel like that was really necessary and an unneeded discretion.
you keep losing me. Are you still on page 5?
Yes.
Yes, it's 7.2.1 C2, so it's just on the same page, scope of improvements, so there was a sentence basically at the end of that, where it gave what you see on the screen, the administrator a lot of discretion to basically waive the improvements.
I remember that. We decided to take it out. I remember that.
So I think at the meeting, everybody decided that was a little too much, the joint meeting, too much discretion, so we removed it. I'm not sure that it's, so does that make sense to everybody? Are we,
Yes.
okay, so 7.2.2E. It is compensation, so that is on page, hold on a second, 7.2.2E. We go to this, this is related to the gated street, so that's page 8 of 43. If you remember, there was a lot of discussion. And we'll go back to that motion page. This is just kind of when you actually go make motions. But there was a lot of discussion, discussion about, the thought is that we were restricting gated streets for new subdivisions, not old, and there was a desire for clarification of that. So we added the words new for new subdivisions in that first sentence, gated streets. So for new subdivisions are prohibited with the following. So that was a simple change, but I think a substantive one, and we'll get into what we think are substantive. I'm just trying to lay everything out that we did. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mhm.
So we're on page 8. We're moving on. We're moving on to 7.3.2A3, which is a little further down the road here.
What page?
Make sure 7.3.2.
10? Is it
No, it is not 10. It is Page 12, so applicability, kind of on the bottom part of 7.3.2 on page 12, applicability. So this was brought up at the joint session that there was an exception for lots on Boundary Street and also lots in the area bounded by Calhoun, Carteret, Bay Street, and Rebo Road, and lots zone limited industrial, light LI. Basically that they were allowed an exception to the TIA requirements, and it was brought up that there's, Boundary Street is experiencing a lot of traffic, and it seems that that would be important to require traffic improvements, impact analysis on that street, and I think everybody agreed at the joint session. So obviously that would probably be a big major change, which we'll, go over which all the major motions are, but that would be removed. So if you had Commissioner Murillo was developing a large mixed use new urbanist development on Boundary Street that, had some restaurants and other things in it. He would require a TIA before this planning commission. Does that make sense? But right now, he wouldn't have to do anything. He could, put 20 restaurants in there and he'd have no TIA.
I
Yes,
really
yes,
don't
ma'am.
like this.
Would this be the time, I mean, if we have a concern over that proposal, would this be the time to mention that?
I think so. I'm just trying to give an overview, so
Okay,
yeah,
well,
but
I-
I think that'd be great. Let's just, if you have concern, go for it, and then we can,
Just for me personally, I would be voting no on making that change. I don't think that I don't think we should delete that section. I think that Boundary Street and the historic district should be exempt from the TIA requirement. I just don't think that anything's going to be gained from a TIA. If we go back to the Boundary Street master plan, the streets have already been designed and to a great extent improved to handle the development and redevelopment along Boundary Street. That was one of the major goals of the plan, is to promote infill and redevelopment. So thereby new traffic signals were planned and added, a median was added, a right turn lane was added there at the intersection of Boundary and Trask Parkway or Highway 170. Street trees, existing excess curb cuts were closed. So I just don't know that anything would be gained from doing. In other words, the planning has already been done and to a great extent has already been implemented. Now, the exception was the new street connections. That has been something that should be ongoing when projects are reviewed by this body, but that's set clearly out in our ordinances about where those streets would be located. We certainly don't want a new, let's say, a deceleration lane put on Boundary Street, tearing up the infrastructure that was just installed there. So I just don't think we would be getting a lot out of that. And we certainly don't want to pose any sort of new challenges to infill development in that area. And similar situation in the historic district. If a project, let's say the post office were ever redeveloped, to accommodate, new uses. Yes, it would generate new additional traffic, but we certainly don't want a right turn lane put on Charles Street. If new development happens along Carteret, we don't want a deceleration lane on Carteret. It is the historic district. So I just feel that a traffic impact analysis in these areas may suggest, quote, improvements that really are not appropriate and not desirable. So I just think it makes sense to keep the exemption in place for these two areas of the community.
I have a comment in response to that, but kind of a question and a comment. As pertains to Boundary Street, the way it was planned is not the way it is today. There was supposed to be an access road and all that, and that it didn't happen, and it's currently impossible to do because of subsequent development. The reason for the traffic study, I thought, was to guide the planning commission and council as far as approval or disapproval of projects in those areas. And the traffic is a problem. It's a problem on Boundary Street today. And the additional things that are coming to completion right now are going to increase that. had a traffic study been done for some of the recent new development on Boundary Street, it is possible that those projects might not have been approved. And I think that, to me, that is the thinking of not exempting Boundary Street and the Historic District from traffic impact studies.
I'm not sure, maybe they wouldn't have been approved, but they may have been approved in accordance with the adopted plan and the street network plan. I mean, particularly that apartment complex, the Pintail Point. I mean, that, I'm not sure what happened, but that project completely blocks a planned road that was in the street network on an official map. I mean, it's a very, unfortunate thing in terms of traffic access management, you might say. But I don't know that that means that then all other new projects should be subject to this requirement. And if a good project comes along, are we going to say, no, we can't build a hotel, we need to build a duplex instead? I don't know. It's just, I just don't think we're going to gain a lot from a traffic impact analysis
I
in
think-
these areas, but.
I think the issue is more, and I agree with Kimberly, I think the issue is more, we need to look at what is happening in our current situation with the traffic. And right now, it's pretty bad right now. All the plans that were set up back then to do that, I think had all good intentions. I just don't know that they're reaching the level of flow of traffic that we wanted it to reach. And I think it's really important that we don't do exceptions, especially in areas that are already high traffic area from TIAs. I think we've got to do the TIAs so that we can understand what the problems are. Now, how we address those problems are a different issue, but I think we have to understand them so that we can address them. So I think that it ought to stay in from my standpoint.
We have a situation here where Boundary Street is congested now. It's one of the most congested areas in the city in terms of traffic. And we're gonna take this out where we're gonna eliminate the use of a TIA when somebody else decides to put another facility on Boundary. I don't think that's reasonable. I think Boundary is bad enough as it is right now, and it's only, without these studies, it's only going to make it worse. We have no control. By taking these TIAs out, we have no control over no control over the impacts on that road system.
I know that you have a comment. I'm hesitant just because we've been through all this so many times and we're here at the final. And if you wouldn't mind, if you wouldn't mind maybe holding on, and maybe at the very end, I can, allow for some public comments. I just want to get our board through all this stuff.
Yeah, and again, giving an overview, I think this is the great way to do it. Just let's discuss anything that comes up, and then when you come to the final vote, each one will require a motion, and you'll have to make a lot of votes.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. Let's go through them all. And then, let's pull out any individual item, like you said, that has controversy, and we can vote on that and then vote on the whole. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I remembered what Ms. McFan was speaking on earlier, so I found it in the code, so we'll get to that later. I remember the no. So, okay, so next, if you go to the next page, page 34, there was some oh, yes, I think that actually, I went to where I found, yes. It's the following page, the 1/2 mile. So C, traffic impact analysis preparation, C2B.
Where are you, Kurt?
Page 13. If you look at the heading traffic impact analysis plan preparation under 2B, a site location map. That's where it starts.
Okay.
So there was discussion at that work session. It said 1/2 mile, and I think there was, there was some a request for some clarity. What did that really mean? And I think, from our meeting, we decided we thought it would be best that, kind of the intention was to go to just a 1 mile. That would make it simple. And again, that's the site location map that's showing surrounding development. It's not actually triggering anything. It's just showing all of the intersections within a mile.
Or just as a follow-up to that, I think there was some discussion about inconsistencies that Councilman Scaletti noticed, that in some places it said 1 mile and some places it said
Right.
1/2 mile.
That's what this is.
Yeah, that's what this was about.
The one, okay.
Yeah, this
This
is,
fixes that, and then the next thing that's on your screen is 7.3.2D, which is found on the bottom of this page and then goes on the next kind of 2 pages. This is related to your comment, Mr. McMahon. And that was to better clarify that it was like a 1/2 mile, but then it had some language there that you can see within a 1/2 mile or 26. I think after discussing it and listening to the councilman's comments, we felt that a few changes which would be substantive, were maybe necessary. And the thought is to really capture intersections instead of just limiting it to a 1/2 mile to any important intersection, and then just to kind of revise it. So it had 2 different sections. It had some duplicate references there that I think that were discussed, so we removed those. And then it had analysis of future conditions. So if you see, we just added the projected, basically the future with the regular traffic impact analysis. So there's it was just redundant. So those were but those are, it's kind of a major change. It also kind of allows the TRC or the Planning Commission to basically have a little more discretion on what those intersections are when they, see, get that traffic impact analysis as well. So, those were the changes. I think it's a, a substantive change. And I think it's a better change than what we had in the packet, because, clearly, as you can see, just as you're talking about Boundary Street, if you put a development on, 1/2 mile away, it definitely can impact the traffic or the intersection a 1/2 mile down the street, right? And I think that's what we were trying to capture. Everybody's in
Okay.
agreement on that. Okay, that's good. That made sense to everybody. And also there was a slight, it said to seed, SCDOT. I think that was, we were looking at what their level of, what their information was, and now we're giving that discretion to the city essentially. So I think I kind of discussed that. Okay, next, 7.3.2D. And let me go to that here. Those are probably a little. Now it's added words for final approval.
What page?
I'm trying to find that, I'm sorry.
On the bottom of page 13, 7.3.2D.
Content.
Yeah, that might be a little out of order. Oh, yeah, it is. Okay. You can find that. You don't happen to see that, do you, Christopher? I might come back to that. Now we don't have the red line here. It's a. You see that in the social supply, the financial rating. We'll come back to that once when we locate that. Once he goes to the. Next, that was, and I'll come back to that once when he's finding on the red line. 7.4.3, community green space and open space types. That's the large table that you have for types of parks and open space. So there used to be a kind of a size requirement in that table. So for each one of them. So we decided, it was brought up at the joint meeting, what was the reason for some of those sizes? Like Pocket Park could be a little larger, a little smaller, et cetera. We couldn't really find any basis for those, and they don't really trigger anything else in the code. And I think that's probably why it was in there. And maybe some other codes, they trigger maybe, you know, some incentive or something of that nature. But in our code, the size doesn't really trigger anything. So we just took the size out for each one since we couldn't justify how large a community park has to be. Does that make sense to everybody?
I'm looking at page 20. That's the chart.
And that's it. Yeah, that's on page 21 is where it starts. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention the page number. 21 through 22 through 23. So it was just taking out, it says service area, and it used to have size. It used to actually have a square foot or an acreage requirement for each one. I think the comment came up at the joint work session that is there any justification for those sizes? Why can't why can't a pocket park be 0.75 acres instead of 0.5 acres? And I don't think we could find any justification for those sizes, and it doesn't really trigger anything else in the code. So we just removed it, but we think that's a.
Because frankly, we have a lot of parks that don't really comply with any of this stuff. And so, and it just didn't make any sense to have minimums and maximums on these parks.
Well, I guess
Oh,
what's
that's a-
confusing me is there are sizes on the chart that's on page 20. I mean, I interpret the column that is labeled size, and then there's, they,
I thought we had removed them all.
yeah, is that supposed to be out?
So what on page 20 are you looking at?
Okay, it's the sideways page, and if you
Page 21, 22, and 23, there used to be a size for each
Hmm.
one of those park types. And we just took that out. We didn't change the park types or what they mean or anything at all, just that
What about the chart on
your
page
sports
20
complex
that
could
has-
be bigger or smaller than what was before, so.
Yeah, but I guess what we're confused, at least Mr. Suter and I are confused about, is page 20 puts minimum open space requirements based on acreage. And then,
Yeah, we didn't change that.
okay, but
That's,
how does that go with the chart that begins on page 21?
okay, the part chart on page 21 is actual park types. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? And it had like
Mhm. Mhm.
sizes with each park type. But the thought
Mhm.
is that yes, you have to do open space or parks, but why are some of the park types limited? They were all limited to size. And so, if your sports complex was, I think it was pretty large, it was like 25 acres. If your sports complex is 20 acres, why does it have to be 25 acres, and what's the meaning of that? And we couldn't find any justification for the specific size in the code, so we felt like it would be best just to remove it.
So if I'm a developer and I'm looking at this, and I see that let's say my plot is 6 acres. So I have to have, depending on which district it's in, I have to meet the minimum open space requirements for the 3 to 10 acres, regardless of whether I'm having a sport complex, a community park, a plaza, whatever. Is that, am I reading that right?
Yeah, but you could do it as a sports complex. It's just, I don't think you could call it a sports complex. That was the question. Let's say your you have 50 acres and you want to turn 20 acres of those into a sports complex. The previous code, I believe, from the red line was like 25 acres, but, you know, the question was, is there some kind of justification why a sports complex has to be 25 acres? Why couldn't it be 20 acres or?
So we would let the market and the realities of whatever the type of park it is dictate whether you could put it on your lot.
Yeah, as long as you're doing, you know, we're in, all those are park types that we'd be accepting of.
Okay.
Does that make sense? But we're just not saying they have like some specific red line, size requirement.
So if it was a 3 to, you know, if it was a 6 acre lot, my sport complex could only cover 3 acres. All
You
right?
probably wouldn't be doing a
It's a
sports
T1.
complex.
I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
See, sport complex is permitted in T1.
That's not my fault.
That Graham Trask?
Oh, it's the other, I'm sorry. Well, it'll go off. Is this, have we made some sense of this?
I have a question. Oh, did you answer? Do you?
I didn't understand. Did you ask me to repeat it?
No, I didn't know if you got the clarification you,
I did not.
okay.
Still not.
And what was the?
Okay, so on my 6 acre lot, in T1, I want to build a sport complex, which is a permitted use in T1. I would have to have 50% of my 6 acre lot be devoted to open civic space requirements. And so I could only cover 3 acres of it with my sport complex. And am I reading that right?
You can obviously cover more of it for open space
Not,
if you'd
not,
like.
I mean,
These are just types of parks that you could use to qualify for a park or open space. Is that for that percentage? So all these types are allowed. And how, does that make sense? So before, I mean, you know, if,
oh, I see what you're saying.
yeah, so
So
you wouldn't,
The sport complex is considered part of the open space.
that's right. We're not changing the open space percentage. We're just changing the minimum. So I guess the minimums provided like you know, if you,
If I wanted to put housing next to my sport complex, I would still have to have my sport complex be covered 50%.
yeah, whatever that percentage is, it's just with the current code, if you, let's say, you know, a lot of the like, I think what Councilman Scaliti brought up was the pocket park. I think it was, it stopped in the red line immersion at a half acre. And his comment was, well, I know a lot of pocket parks that are not community, that are much larger than that.
So,
Something of that nature. And just, you know, is there any justification for any of those minimums? And, you know, we couldn't really find one. And some of them are pretty large. And so like the sports complex is regional minimum, 25 acres. So you couldn't do a sports complex unless you had 25 acres of sports.
I see.
We just felt like, and like the regional park is 200 minimum acres. It's a massive park, right? That's probably unlikely if we're going to see a 200 acre park be dedicated, but you know, does a regional park have to be 200 acres? I guess that's how the code set it all out. As a baseline for any of those parks to be like kind of accepted as parks and open space. And we just felt like it could be more, yeah, you know, a little more discretionary, that, you know, you'd have a little more freedom if you were a developer to develop these things. They'd still be coming to the planning commission, right? You know, you couldn't just say, I'm going to build a sports park and not show it on all your plans. And it's, you know, basically one baseball diamond and you call them a sports complex, right? So does that, hopefully that provide the
That
clarity that,
explains it. Once I understood that what, at 7 point, the chart on page 20 says what your minimum open space requirement is. And you changed the chart that starts on page 21 to say, basically, any of these could be accepted regardless of size.
so I have a question on that same, and I don't know if it has anything to do with the size, that's given that we're taking off. on the beginning of that, part 7.4.3, it says the majority of community green space and open space shall conform to one of the 8 types in the table if 75% or more of the types listed below is utilized, a 20% increase in the number of dwellings is permitted. I'm, I'm not 100% sure what that means. Does that mean 75% of the 8? So 6 of the different types of parks is utilized? And I
What
guess
page
to
were you
add
on?
to, it's on that page 21,
21 at the top.
very top.
Top of 7.4.
And then to add to that question, if it's 75%, so 6 of the 8, am I doing the percentage right? Yeah. Is it possible that maybe a developer might get away with saying that we have a sports complex, which is just a bocce court, and that would count as one of the 6? And bocce courts obviously smaller, and previously, we were requiring a minimum of 25 acres.
So I think your first question is about something we didn't change. It's in the original code. If 75% or more of the types listed or below are utilized, we're required the 20% increase in open space or density.
Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure what that meant.
I think that was an incentive. In fact, the code I did before I got here had a similar type of thing, but then it was actually an incentive to provide more parks and open space because it triggered density requirements. Well, I think we haven't discussed this, and I don't think it's harming anything right now to keep it in here. So I don't know. I'm not sure if it should be emotions because it's just now coming up. But 2, we have all the transect zones don't have a density cap, right? And so it's not really providing any incentive. And so it's almost, I mean, the only district you'd get an incentive would be like the IC district, which is already pretty dense as it is. So, I mean, there's almost no incentive to be gained for this statement,
But it would make it easier, basically, if we're taking out the minimums to achieve that 75%.
Well, I think what I'm trying to say is maybe it's a moot point because we don't have any density cap for any district except for the traditional districts. Transect zone doesn't have minimum lot sizes or density sizes. Okay, go ahead.
I think it means something different. It's like if you are in a T4 district, for example, and you're having to provide 50 acres in open space, you could do 50 acres on one type, or if you choose more, like if you choose to diversify and if you pick like numerous categories, you're going to get an increase on 20%. So if you do, for instance, T4, if you do a greenway, if you pick a square, if you do a plaza, if you do a pocket park, a playground. So if you do a more diversified community where you have different types of open spaces that you kind of, broaden out in your plan and not just focus your necessary 50 acres that you're covering on one spot in one type, then that will give you that incentive of actually 20% more. So if you're covering more than just one type and you're kind of diversifying your open space categories and types and kind of, what I'm saying?
Yeah,
is diversifying those 50 acres and divvying it up amongst different types of open spaces and providing those throughout the community, that will give you that incentive of.
But you could have if we're taking out the minimums, what I'm saying is you could have that diversity, but you could have it smaller since we're not going to have the minimum. So basically, like previously it's 0.5 acres of plaza, we could just do basically a 10 by 10 plaza.
And that kind of is also the argument of taking out the acreage or the size requirements on the types of open spaces, because now it lets the developer diversify more easily and saying, okay, the types of open space spaces are only, they're permitted in specific districts, yes, but there are no size restrictions to those. So now you can pick and choose, okay, what do I want to provide in my community? So I'm gonna, have it's gonna add up to 50 acres at the end, but you're gonna have more diversification amongst types of open spaces. And if you do so, that's going to be the incentive of diversifying in types of open space, basically. I think that's what it's going to,
So you're telling us that the way it reads, if 75% or more of the types, the 75% refers to the 8 types of spaces. So
Yeah,
what
the
what I
types of
think,
spaces, but the-
would be clearer if
but
if you put if 6 or more different types of civic open space are used in a given development, 20% increase in the number of dwelling units is permitted.
Again, I would just state that I think this is something that's done in a lot of codes. Like I said, the last code, it was a way to incentivize parks and open space. The problem being is the T4 district has unlimited density. It's based on the height and how much you can fit on your lot. So we're not, even if we do it based on the types, it's only going to affect maybe the IC district, which is an institutional campus district. And I don't know that
What about, isn't T5?
T5 is a transect space. So all of the districts don't have a minimum, they don't have a maximum density. Does that make sense? So I think this was just, could have been a good incentive but with our current code, it doesn't really provide much. So maybe it's a moot point, but again, it hasn't been discussed until now. And I think it would be kind of maybe not something we should make a major change on, because I don't think it really matters, to be perfectly honest.
I guess, I think we've been going over this code for so many months that we're at a point now where I think we have the substantial modification of changes that need to be made. I'd really like to see us move forward to get through those. And we have stuff that we have to backtrack on later on afterwards and make amendments. I think we can do that, but we need to move it forward, or we're not
Yeah.
going to be having a code out there for people to comply with. If we
Oh,
can.
that's
mean-
page 18.
But make notes of anything that you think, and then do some research, and we'll bring it up in our committee meetings, and we'll go back and take another look at it, and we can always amend what we do. But I'd like to see us get through what we have on our plate right now.
But is that fair, that we're just not gonna, again, I don't think it changes anything at all, and I think it was meant to be an incentive that really has no practical use right now, and that's why I don't think it's an important, plus we haven't talked about it before, and so it literally it's just come up, but and I think we'd have to figure out a different way to do that incentive than this anyway, because it just doesn't work with dwelling units in a transect environment. I think we can all agree.
Let's
so.
go ahead and move on.
It doesn't harm anything, since it's not gonna harm anything, so, going back to the 7.3.2D, so that's actually on page 18. It was J. So it's on page 18, that's an error on our, yeah, it's J, an error on our, PowerPoint. So if you look on J, it says, the TRC shall recommend to the planning commission for its final approval action as follows. And so I didn't state that before. It just said for its final approval. I think that was it just said shall recommend to the planning commission action as follows. So we just added for final approval. So we thought that it was a scrivener's error, if everybody else feels that that was a scrivener's kind of issue. I think it came up in the work session from Councilman Scaletti. He just thought that was missing a word, so we added the final approval. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, moving on. All right. So I'll just keep going through. So now we're on 7.5.1. That is starting on page
26.
26, for anybody following along. It's great, we're all on the same page this time. Great. So these, a lot of these changes, I think, came from the chamber document. There was, and also I think from that work session, so typical came up in the work session and in that document, so it was in kind of the last paragraph, I think, of 7.5.1. It said, I think, there was a typical, submittal checklist, okay, will typically provide to an applicant. So if you look at that last paragraph in 7.5.1, it said the planning department will typically provide, so we removed the typically because people didn't know what typically meant. So we just removed typically, felt like that's a Scrivener's issue.
So now it reads that you will
Just
provide.
says will provide to an applicant. I'm of course devastated for that lack of discretion that we have now. Typically, I'm just joking around. At a certain point, you have a joke about this. And there was also comments, I think, from the from that comment from a few weeks ago, from that draft from the chamber. There was the subdivision regulations. And you know, did we, hold on, of these, okay. Think we made that change. Did we make that change? Well, if we didn't, we're going to make it. I think there was just a desire to make it standards instead of, I don't know that it really matters, to be perfectly honest with you. They're the same meaning. But 7.5.2, which is going on page 26, but specific to 27, was to remove the and replace with or on each one, A and B. So on page 27, A and B, major and minor subdivisions, both of the number twos said or, said and before, so we're replacing that all with or. We feel like that's a Scrivener's error. There were a lot of I think, items that were brought up in the chamber comment on the sketch plan. That we feel like most of them were Scrivener's errors, so, or just clarifications, so you can see on the screen, there's a lot of them. So capitalizing major and subdivision, adding the word community, capitalizing applicant, removing the word and replacing it instead with street to be consistent with, I guess it was previously in street. So this is all starting on page 27, 28, and 29. We're not thinking any of these are substantive, just capitalizing an applicant and adding community, capitalizing open, removing OCRM because it's been now changed at the state level to SCDES. Removing pedestrian shed and replacing with distance. Removing the word harmonious and replacing it with the word consistent. Removing the sentence, the applicant shall submit a complete sketch plan package to the city because it was redundant, not really needed. The whole submittal just says the application package shall include their following items. So before it had the applicant shall submit a complete sketch, so that was completely redundant, unneeded. One major thing that we'll have in our major thing was removing the title commitment. The thought was it's a sketch plan. It's kind of meant to be conceptual. You know, who owns the property at that time is not as critical, and it would add an unnecessary cost. But that'll be a major item. I probably should have taken it out of here, but removing public dedication. Oh, go ahead.
So C2 reads title of project. The application shall include the following items, title of project. I think if you're going to clarify, it needs to be, you know, who has title to the project as opposed to the name of the project.
Oh, no, it was the title commitment requirement. So who owns the property? So we were requiring a title commitment, so it's removed in your draft.
But
Oh, okay.
there's two.
So this is
different-
just the title of the project, like, is it, you know, Green Acres?
Okay, so you don't.
Title
you're not
commitment is who
requiring-
owns it, right? Who's on the title, right?
Well, that's not what a title commitment means, but
Well,
You're talking about the name of the project versus a
No, no, I think-
representation as who owns it.
No,
or
No,
not.
we're talking,
Talking about the title of the property.
yeah, we're talking about just what's the
Ownership.
name? Is it Green Acres, right? That just came into mind.
So number two, you're talking about the ownership of the property?
That's
Yes.
not clear.
That's not clear.
So that was,
Is the
you
name
know,
of
in
the
the red
project
line
or-
version, that was,
Two
two was the title commitment, three is title of the project.
Okay,
that
well,
make sense?
on this, if you look at this draft on page 28, C2 says title of project.
We're
If-
correct.
If
We didn't
if
change
you mean, what is the name of the project? It should not say title. It should be name of project. If you mean who owns the project, the property, it should say who has title to the property now.
Well, we removed the title, who has title to the property, but if you feel like that's what was being removed, that was number two. Number three was title of the project, just the title, like the name
Well,
of the
three is
project.
now
If you
says-
feel like title of the project is too amorphous or not the right word, I think that could be a scrivener's error to say the
Information required under the sketch plan application submittal, does that does the information, you go through this, 1 through 13, this is information that's shown on a plan, on a drawing. It's not, so you want the title of the project, Joe Blow's Restaurant.
yeah, like it's
But
Green Egg, I
Not
was saying
the own-
Green
you're
Egg.
not interested
if
in
you
the
feel-
ownership of the project.
Title is too, it
I think
confuses
title
it.
is
I think a
confusing.
scrivener's change could be made for clarification purposes,
I
that
think
that
we should
word,
use name of the project.
name of project is fine with me.
Yeah,
It's
That's
like-
what you want.
So yeah, that's what's
Yeah.
going
I
on.
think that doesn't need a major substantive change motion, so. if There's three attorneys here, so.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so we're gonna switch that to name. And we'll have to switch the draft that goes to the city council to name. Okay, I was just trying to provide all of these because some of them require the change of the numbering and that's where it used to be. It was two, but now that's been removed.
Can I just ask a quick
sure.
question? Mr. Tomey, all these changes that we're going through right now, is this something that you and Mr. Bardenwerper
Yeah.
went over with
Yeah,
staff?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we went over all of those. And,
Twice.
you know, we, you know, words like title, we assumed were something, I think your comment is good, and I think that needs to be changed.
Okay, no, I just
didn't
wanted to
think of
know
the
if,
title in that sense. Yeah,
Yes, and so, again, we're just trying to look at these minor things because if we don't, you know, because we feel they're minor and the code's important, right? So let's not, you know, hopefully things like this can be just addressed through a scrivener's error. That's the whole idea here. You know, again, with public dedication, we removed public, so it's dedication requirements, but that did change a little bit. Add community to open space, remove contents of a parentheses that were unneeded, remove the word proposed, replace with the word proposed development, replace a sentence.
You know, I don't think you have to read every one of these to
Okay,
us.
well, I'm just trying to, I'm
I
just
don't-
trying to be,
this is,
is
you don't have to, I can.
transparent as humanly possible
No,
since
yeah,
we've
but
gotten into excessive detail this whole
this is-
process at
no,
every
this is-
meeting.
this-
So I mean,
no, this-
I'm,
No, I can read it. I can read it.
Okay.
Everything here seems to make sense.
okay, and there was just, I think, from the chamber, there was the C24, just the way we had worded structure, location, massing and designs was a little clunky. And so we just try to make that a little more straightforward. And then at the work session, H1 and H2, those were kind of, so at the very end on page 30, there was like this minor amendment that can be reviewed by an administrator that, you know, the thought was, is that cumulative? Could they just do it at, you know, each time? So we just added cumulatively to address that comment. We think that's a minor comment. So altogether, you can only do 10%. Okay, so then we'll just, so the major things that we thought that we changed in sketch plan, as you see from your memo, we're removing that title commitment that was in C2 from your first draft requirement, and then changing the notice requirement from 500 to 1,000 feet. So the rest that I went over, we felt were all scriveners type of. So does this make sense to everybody? You have both documents in your packet.
Kurt, I have one comment. I remember when we talked about that notice requirement, we're expanding it out to 1,000 feet, which is fine, but are you and staff okay with that? Because my memory when we discussed that was that would potentially be, but I do remember, I think that's something that city council specifically wanted.
correct.
Is that going to be
Yeah, I think our comment was obviously we're sending out all the letters so that, requires a lot more letters for us, but, transparency is important and notice is important.
Okay,
So
okay.
if you feel it's,
No, I am not trying to, I'm trying to get through this as quickly as we can.
right now, there's no notice requirement. There's zero. So if
Hmm.
you come to do a sketch plan or preliminary plat or something of like that nature, we're not sending anything out. So,
That's an improvement then.
that's a major improvement, and 1,000 feet is pretty is on the high end for a lot of communities, right? It goes even higher, but not too many communities go higher than 1,000. I'm aware of, especially in South Carolina. So 1,000 feet, we will be setting a very expansive standard for transparency and notice for our community, and I think that's a positive thing. So, preliminary plat section 7.54, don't know that I need to go through all of these then, if you're all in agreement that these are kind of minor changes, we'll just go to the major changes, but, one of the biggest things was the 12 months to 18 months was not found in the version that went to the track change version that went to the council, and we clarified that was actually 12 months at
I want to put an F in front of wrong.
yeah. So it is 12 months. I just want to make sure that that's clear. Just, like SC licensed engineer, remove equitable and replace with any, remove first sentence and word dedication, remove these were all kind of, I think, change environmental expert from qualified biologists, geologists, and ecologists. So I think we felt these were all minor changes unless anybody doesn't feel like they're minor.
Okay, so the thing I was asking about, is that in F on page 33?
Oh, yes. Early grading. And so, that was F on page 33. And so it said before early grading. And so this came up at our work session. Early grading and storage of construction related equipment is at the risk of applicant and no final plat approval by the planning commission. So, the track changes version, not the version that we had first reading, didn't have the no for whatever reason. I can't explain why. And so it said in final plat approval, by the way, is expressed or implied. So that obviously would be a major, the whole point of that sentence is to say that, you're not given final plat approval if you decide to do early grading. And so that was what was discussed, and that no is indeed in there, but it didn't really require a change here because it was already in the clean version. And I think just a previous red line version, it was not caught maybe by either one of us or the city attorney. I'm not sure, but it was in our final version, correct? But that is what you were referencing.
Okay,
And that did come up at that code, at that joint session. The other thing that's the post-approval actions for grading, we felt was a major change, and that came up with a lot of discussion. So would be a new section that we think would require a motion, and it was in the final plat. I think it came up from Councilman Scaletti. And the thought is that, if we're going to allow grading, this has a lot of protections for the city. Wouldn't we want that in the preliminary plat as well? So we just kind of took out building permit and kept that in the final plat section and basically added it, for the grading permit. And then the same change to be consistent for the notice area. So we're going from the 500-foot notice to the 1,000-foot notice. Again, the current code is 0. So we're going, the first reading was 500. Upon that joint session, we're going to everything to 1,000 foot. So that makes sense. So we feel like it's a major change. Require a motion. Okay, that sounds good to everybody. I'll move on to final plat. That would start on page 34.
So one thing I do want to point out, 755D, remove the word public in front of improvements. So improvements appears twice there, but the first one does still have the word public. Should it go away?
Can you just, 755?
Yeah, page 38,
38.
subsection D. The change there was to remove the word public in front of improvements. Improvements seems to appear there twice.
page 33, do you mean?
38, I'm sorry.
38. So are you talking about time frame related to
Yes.
approval of final
Yes.
plat?
Timeframe?
The word improvements appears twice in that paragraph. Once it has the word public, the other time it does not have the word public, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, I think that's a good Scrivener's error we should make. Public, you're right.
Okay.
The goal was that, there's a lot of private improvements that we do bond because they are
So it's
become
a
public
real bit public from the.
from the
Third line. of
third line.
B. Okay.
That's correct. So that was obviously changed. There was like the word drawing that we removed. We removed the title commitment. We removed technical standards of the city and replaced it with the word code. We removed DHEC and replaced it with SCDES. Removed the signature block for utility providers because they don't sign our plots. That was an error on our part. I think that was pretty much it. I think we felt those were all minor changes, just clarifications, but didn't really have any material impact on anyone. Minor subdivision, which is the next page 38. Really the only thing was that utility providers as a signatory on a minor subdivision. That was an error. It was one of the clauses there. So that would just be changed in the clean version. Moving on page 39. The site plan, we removed gathering places, and I'm not sure why we had that, but we didn't feel like it was necessary. It was brought up in the chamber version, but it doesn't really provide anything that any really requirement under the code or anything you would need to make a decision. So we felt it just could be removed. Again, the utility providers was changed as it's been changed throughout, removed. We removed the certified and just added instead prepared by a licensed engineer. It used to say certified engineer, so we said prepared by a licensed engineer. The major changes, as I'll get to, is that 500 to 1,000. The sentence that we felt is unnecessary is there. The applicant and other properties owner likely to be materially affected by the application shall be given an opportunity to be heard. We think that's implied by the public notice standard, and for some reason that was in site plan, but no other section. So we just removed it as kind of unnecessary and inferred. And then there was a words that unless otherwise extended as herein provided that, just didn't really need to be there at all. We removed that. And then, so the major change there was the public notice from 500 to 1,000 feet. And then finally, take a deep breath, is what came up at our meeting there, the code meeting, is 9.1.4. It was commented that we had removed the minor subdivision process from that process table. And, there was just a question, that could be helpful to citizens, to applicants, to surveyors, that is there, it kind of provides some direction. And so that was just added back in. But it didn't, it's kind of a clarification type of thing. We didn't feel like it was major. So with that, I think I've gone over everything. If you see in your packet, there's two memos. So we've just distilled these in this PowerPoint, the one PowerPoint, but there's two memos that has motions for the major changes. And so that's under the substantive change. It has a motion. Each one is kind of separated out. We're basically, I hereby make a motion. There's not really a page number, I'm sorry to say, but you'd be making these motions after the memo. It says motions for second reading. And it starts with street network section 7.2.2E. And it states here, I hereby make the motion to amend section 7.2.2E with the following changes to add the words for new subdivisions. And so the one that you did have some conversation is on the second page. That was section 7.3.283. So that was the exception. So you can have that discussion, but I think I'm done there, but I'll just refer you to that sheet that's basically by section number that has a motion.
Kurt, where are you?
Yeah, I would suggest that
God's
you
sakes.
number this motion, this pages of motions, they're unnumbered pages. It's very difficult to follow and it's going to be very difficult for council to follow as well when you go through it. So you'd add page numbers to that memo.
Sure. I think still probably handwrite that in there. And I apologize. We did put this out the 11th hour, so page numbers were not included in this in the memo. So after the, you should have a memo that was at the beginning, right after your minutes. Then you had a motions for substantive changes to recommend to city council. Does everybody have that?
Mm-hmm.
That's where that's where the motions are found. Was everybody there? You have a memo right after your minutes. Then you have another set of, you have the motions. Does everybody see that? Is everybody there? Okay, I'll wait. And it's kind of by section. So each page is a different section. So I think I'm done, basically, and I think what you would need to do, what we would recommend, is to make a motion to city council separately for each one of these substantive items. If you agreed with that presentation, that all those things that we discussed were minor items, that were just clarifications.
Kurt, I have a question.
Sure.
You had us make a motion about not dealing with 9.10, 9.11, and a portion of 9.14. We did, and we unanimous, whatever, we all passed it. And I think it might be helpful to add at the end of your motions memo that something about accepting the recommendation of the planning commission, that these sections are not part of the
Sure. Sure. I will obviously update this and we'll update the two. I think there were two words, the public and, no, he's writing them down. I know I wrote them down here. There was one other minor thing that had to be fixed, I think that you all caught. But that was a Scrivener's change. The title of the project to the,
The name.
name of project. So the name of project but we all felt those were Scrivener's errors. We will add this, we'll update this after this meeting and send it to I think it's August 18th or August, I can't remember the date, but we'll send that to the August city council meeting with that update. So that'll be
and
last.
with that addition that I just suggested at the end.
Yes, yeah, we'll add that to that. And, if you have any other suggestions, we can improve upon this, obviously them as well. But,
I think we have one issue that Livia brought up that we need to vote on. But then can't we just do a comprehensive review approval for you on all these and not go through?
sure, I think you can. I think I would just review them all, that you agree with all of them. And the one that you're talking about is on basically the second page of that set of papers, which is 7.3.2A3, which is the exception.
And
So if you just
Mr.
want to have that discussion now, and I think Ms. Sunderloh was wanting to speak on it as well.
Yeah, I'll let her first.
I was just going to say to the chair, I was going to abstain from voting on these amendments because I was not part of the year-long discussion. You all have worked, long and hard on all these changes. I wasn't involved in any of those. So I'm going to abstain from voting on.
Okay,
these.
well,
So
that
there's
makes sense.
Yeah, so if no one, this issue about the traffic impact analysis, if, you could just proceed on that, don't.
Okay,
If everybody else is in agreement, then don't,
all right, well,
I'm going to abstain. So.
rather than a vote,
I just-
let me just take a poll. Can we just move forward without doing any amendments to the traffic impact analysis on?
Meaning,
Boundary?
meaning we would not exempt Boundary Street and
Right,
historic district.
we would leave it the way it is now.
Okay.
That Guys?
Yeah.
All right, would you? Okay. All right, so I think then we are going to have a motion on accepting the changes as presented by Kurt with the exceptions that we've identified. So I will take a motion on that.
I'll also move.
Well, I can't make the motion.
I will so move.
Okay,
And the exceptions we're talking about is taking out the word public, changing the word title to name of project, and adding a motion regarding adopting the recommendation of the planning commission about not considering 9.10, 9.11, and a portion of 9.14.
correct. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. And Libby abstains, so it is unanimous and with one exception.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all of your work. I know, I think just Mr. Tomey and Mr. Bardenwerper spent 8 or 9 hours just in 3 or 4 days with us. Plus, I know all of you have spent hours over this period of time, and I think I'm definitely ready to move this forward. So thank you. Thank you for all your help.
Well, the steak dinner and drinks didn't hurt.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah.
Okay. So moving on to new business and discussion. Is there anybody online that would like to talk about accessory dwelling units or STRs?
Mr. Trask has his hand raised. I don't know if it pertains to what you just spoke about, though.
Is he online?
Yes, he is.
Okay,
Okay, can you hear me this time?
we can.
Yes.
Oh, gosh, I am so sorry and I apologize to the planning board. I can put my video on, Olivia, if he'll let me, but I don't see a choice for that. But I'm not talking about ADUs, and I appreciate if you just give me about 30 seconds to reinforce the email I sent, which I just wanted to make to Mike and to Kurt. I just wanted to make sure that you guys received that.
Yes, I did.
Oh, what about the whole board? Because I'd
We
like the
got
whole
it. We
board.
have it. We have it.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And so I just wanted to underscore this, and I understand that you guys are wrestling with the historic district changes in the zoning code, but I'm hoping and imploring this board to carve out the demolition section and put a sunset on demolition permits. I believe it's irresponsible to have an unending demolition permits. I'm the holder of one. I still think it's irresponsible for the city to have unending demolition permits. And I think you can easily handle this aspect of the historic district without having to go through everything that it seems like you might be doing with the Northwest Quadrant and heirs property and demolition by neglect. And I'm just hoping that that is something that you'll consider. And I make that case in that email that I sent.
Thank you, Mr. Trask. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes. Okay. So I'm publicly opening up any discussion on accessory dwelling units or STRs, if there's any.
Thunderla Historic Beaufort Foundation. I want to echo what Mr. Freeze just said, to thank y'all for all of the hard work that you've been doing with this code for 2 years, I guess, it's been. So congratulations. And I know we're still moving forward, but congratulations on what you've done so far. Actually have a number of comments, and so I just wanted to follow up with a comment you had said at the very beginning, Mr. Chairman, about putting this on the work session. agenda, because I think that would actually be more helpful to bring up the comments that I have during that time, during work session. And then there may be some other folks who are also in the audience at that time.
Sure.
So that's really where I wanted to go and suggest, because I will have a number of comments then.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for staff. Did you have an opportunity to discuss with council if they're interested in us taking this up?
Yes, they were.
They are, okay, so as a separate ordinance or just a general discussion or?
General discussion was all we were having.
It's up to you. I mean, we can postpone this to a work session if you'd like, or we can.
I just think that we got the notice out late, not your fault.
Well, it is our fault. We didn't
Well,
have to-
but we didn't finish up until late Thursday, and they only had Friday to take all the information that we had just spent 5 hours or whatever on, and get it put together to be able to go out. So, so I think I want to hear from the public. We have heard a little bit already, but I would like to hear, in open session, public comments. So I would like to reset this, again for the next public hearing. Any discussion?
Sounds like a good idea.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Could I,
The public needs to be brought into.
could I request, case studies of site plans of, ADUs that we're getting?
At the Colorado
I
fight.
accidentally took my wife's phone. So I don't know how to turn it off because it's a Google Android.
So,
Isn't that embarrassing? Sorry.
case studies of site plans that you guys have been getting complaints about? That has ADUs I guess like the last time there was like a project that had 2 ADUs.
Oh, you would like us to bring,
Yeah,
At the compound.
The compound.
Yeah.
I'm really curious what the site plan looks like.
yeah, we could provide you again, the 2 ADU, requirement is, allowed in any district but T3S. So, there's a number of them I think we could provide.
Okay.
That'd be great. I think that'd be helpful. Any other comments?
I'd like to know what the process is like, the compound. How did that get through? I mean, we never saw anything on it.
Well,
and
it's
let me
a
make
single
one other-
family home.
Before you.
Sure.
On Pigeon Point Road, they shoehorned in 3 little, cottages, if you will, right almost on the corner of Pigeon Point Road and where Boundary is. And they're right there. And they're shoehorned in. How does
Well,
that
actually, the MPC heard the rezoning of that property in 2023, but I think it was the MPC, not the PC. So, per code, by right, any property owner not zone T3S is allowed to submit plans for a single family home with 2 ADUs. And the ADUs have to meet the requirements per the code. And, we don't have a lot of discretion. So if you meet those basic setbacks and it's behind, the main structure and it's smaller than 50%. So all that is in your, kind of packet for today. We have to approve it. It doesn't go to, any hearing. In fact, we really have very little discretion on it. It's just, that's basically how it works.
Well, that is exactly the change that the representatives who appeared at our previous work sessions, they want us to change that.
Okay. Well, I think it's important for us to review it and make some decisions about how to move forward with it, because it is an issue and it's getting to be more and more of an issue with time. So it's probably something we need to address as soon as possible. Any other comments?
I have a question and for clarification, on Mr. Tress's memo that he sent us. He's discussing, sunsetting the, code for, the demolition. what does that refer to? What does that mean? Define it.
Okay, right now, the
Tell
demolition
me
permit.
what we're sunsetting.
So when we discussed, Ms. McFan brought up the table 9.1.4 with COAs. We had made a change and I, kind of, I think, a little bit forgot about it with COAs, but we made a change with all of those process types that you just approved. We shortened them all to a period of time. They're all like 5 years. They were all, like 2 years and then you get an extra 5 years, or 3 years and you get an extra 5 years. So the demolitions have never had that in the code. They just are allowed and they are allowed so forever. So 100 years
Good
from,
question. So right now, if I take out a demolition permit for a house,
well, it's,
I can keep I can keep it active forever.
well, that's
That's
that's maybe the misclarification. That's maybe the misunderstanding. So
Okay.
you'd get a demolition permit from either the administrator or the HRB. If it's a contributing home, it would have to come from the HRB. If it's a non-contributing home and the administrator didn't send it to the HRB, which is in the current code, it can be sent. It can be approved by the administrator, but a lot of them have been sent to the HRB anyway. So those demolition approvals are good forever. Whereas like your preliminary plat or your COA that we talked about are good for, 5 years right now until this code's approved. Right, and after 5 years, you got to come back to the planning commission to get, or the HRB to get pre-approved. The demolition permit's good for 6 months. And that's basically, like you're going to put a silt fence up and all that kind of thing. And, hazardous materials, asbestos, all that kind of stuff's going to be clean. And so the demolition permit and the demolition that's allowed by the entity are two different things. The demolition permit's kind of like what we were talking about with the ADUs. That's just a permit. You come, if you have that demolition approval, you can come anytime to get that demolition permit. It's just really for, who's your contractor, right? You could do that anytime. But if you don't get the demolition approval from the HRB, you can't get the demolition permit. Does that, hopefully that makes some
So,
sense.
so he's talking about not the permit, but the approval.
The approval.
So I guess I don't know why Mr. Truss says that it's irresponsible to issue such approvals. The only thing that I could think that could happen that might be irresponsible would be if someday the list of the contributing structures
Changes.
And so, one approach would be, to limit the time, to limit the approval with a condition that at the time the party wants to do the demolition, the structure is not on the list of whatever. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, and there's a lot of hair on this so that's why I always thought that this was going to come back to you because it's obviously a pretty controversial issue.
Yeah,
Well, you
I
can-
think it's something that we need to take care of in a
Subcommittee?
And, well, since it's been brought up this way, I don't think it would be inappropriate to at least have it for discussion at a work session for this piece of it. We could have a discussion without, and see where we get with it. That would be helpful to me because I'm trying to write that demolition section anyhow. So,
Seems like a good idea.
we can put that on our agenda as well.
Yeah, I think we might postpone that until the council is going to hear kind of the results of the subcommittee at their next meeting. So that'll be after your work session. So I think it would probably be best to wait until after that meeting to kind of work out. That's just my recommendation. So no reason to spend time on it if that subcommittee's results don't
Well,
yield some fruit, right?
yeah, I think we're talking about two different things. So I think we're also talking about just the planning commission having their thoughts about that particular issue for the sunset on these things. So I think it's just an open discussion during one of our work sessions. I'd like to have that background, quite frankly.
Yeah, clearly it's going to be a big thing and it just when it happens, I think you're committing to the ADU short-term rental, I think next time at the work session. So that's going to be,
Well,
that's going to be a major,
No, I'm saying that the ADU short-term rentals need to go to the next public session, that we have each month.
Is-
Our planning commission
okay.
meetings.
And I think that's what the next discussion item is actually is the August PC and work session and future code edits. So
Yeah,
Um, yes, since you postponed that, I think that's the question. That's, staff's kind of recommending that maybe one of them could be more of a training session or kind of like a, kind of a, what do they call it, like in the military, like a sit rep or something, like where we've done a lot of work, but maybe we need to talk about things, and then just, how can we improve as we are moving forward in next chapters and just kind of think about things. So which one of those, that's what I was recommending for one of those sessions. Which one it is, I guess it doesn't matter to me. If you decide to go with that recommendation.
my opinion, I think that's fine. I think we could definitely do that. I
Like,
think
excuse
that
me.
what you had written for your description of the way forward, I think we've already decided that that's exactly what we're gonna do, quite frankly. So, but we can put that into the hopper for,
Yeah, I mean,
For
we're on it
discussion.
now. We might as well have that discussion, but I think, that was the idea is like, you've decided, I think, to make the ADU discussion one of these meetings. I think the chairman wants to make it the PC meeting. That's fine with me. I think staff was just thinking, it might be good for you all to have like a little work session or
Sure.
training session together, maybe get lunch or something and, just talk about how can we improve this process? Just, what are the major items on some of these chapters so we can kind of maybe look at it at the 10,000 square foot level before 10,000 foot level before we start getting into this detail and start really working on the code. Maybe we can kind of have those discussions, just have a little session. It's August, it's very hot and maybe that would be
So, but I
time to
think
do that.
there is a priority about the ADU and short-term rentals. What if we did that at our August work session? Keep the momentum on that
Mhm,
going and
mhm.
then do the training, other stuff in our September work session with that. It's still gonna be hot in September.
Yeah, it's just an idea. It's just a thought. So it's up to you. I was suggesting either one of the August, either the work session or the meeting could be,
I'd rather
if
see that.
there's nothing scheduled for the meeting, it could just turn into a,
I'd rather see the ADUs discussed at a work session, open to the public, which we've had before.
yeah, and I
PC would
understand
be
that. I don't have any
Well,
problem with
here.
that.
But do
But
it.
I would like
Agree
to,
with you. Go for it.
my thought process right now is I'd still like to see it come to a PC meeting so that, it was, a little more formal, more people paying attention to it. I think a lot of people don't pay attention to the work session so much.
Okay, all right.
So
just so what I'm suggesting is that the work session would become this kind of meeting to talk about just everything and just kind of take a little, just what have we learned? How can we improve type of
Yeah.
thing? That could be the work session, I think, and if Mike's suggesting the planning commission meeting at 5 o'clock would be open to the public. Right, you'd have this discussion with the public and we could, obviously put it out way ahead of time. So, maybe put it on Facebook or something.
It would be great if we could sort of preview our schedule for the public, maybe in a Facebook post. Because at our last few work sessions, we've had people come talking to us every
Yeah.
time about short-term rentals and, compounds and, whatnot. So,
Well,
to let
it is
them
on
know
our
when
radar.
we're gonna,
Yeah, it's on their radar.
So does that sound good? I mean, you don't have to vote on this. You can just give me direction, but, do you like Mike's suggestion of, taking I think it's August 4th, maybe, and kind of just, turning that into something different? We can email that, what kind of we're suggesting, and then scheduling the PC meeting. I think it's the 18th, the 18th of August. And we would obviously send that to our public information officer to kind of put up on all of the social media, but we would put out the packet at least a week ahead of time and try to make that the meeting to notify the public to come and speak on short-term rental and ADU. Just have that.
Yeah, like maybe in the social media, address both the work session and the agenda and the regular meeting and the agenda. Our work sessions have been typically left off of those, at least the Facebook posts for the last several months. I sent you emails on that. So if maybe she could do something, what is the planning commission doing in August? And then, state the two things that might be helpful to the public.
And on that note, I had a note for some reason that the workshop was going to be on August 11th. I wrote 4 and crossed it out and then put 11th. And is that because someone wasn't going to be here? And I don't know, but that's what I have. It's going to be moved to the 11th.
That's what I have too.
That's what's on my calendar as well.
This is what happens when you write this an hour before. It comes
And
out.
just, it doesn't matter, but I won't be here for the August regular meeting on the 18th. I'm going to be out of.
August 11th is fine with me, obviously.
I don't know why it says that, but it's.
Well, I think
So the work
I've got
session
it
is on
too.
the 11th.
I have a planning commission on 1 o'clock on the 11th.
Okay, so that's
I got two.
my fault.
Work session.
Yeah.
Right.
And then on the 18th is when we have our PC meeting here.
Yes.
Okay.
Does that sound good? So August 11th, we'll have, we'll set details with it later, but that'll just be kind of a train. It obviously has to be a public meeting, so it has to be put out, that, but you're going to be talking about kind of, this whole process, whereas August 18th will be advertised for this short-term rental ADU discussion. That sound good direction?
Good.
And the final thing I was gonna talk about is, I think probably the biggest mistake that I personally have made with this process, and maybe we've made, and that's, and maybe society in general is making, is that no one is on the same page. And that is, we've had 17 meetings, we don't have a, and we were sending out red line versions of every single meeting and posting them online. That, I think you've all heard that. What was happening, I think, with council, with everyone involved, is that people were making comments on maybe one of the red line versions, and they didn't want to go through all the other red line versions, and so they kept that red line version, and it became extremely confusing to everyone. And so, while that was, I think, a lot of work and very informative of everyone, it wasn't working. There's no Walter Cronkite here to, you're all watching just one program. So maybe the better way to do this is to just watch one program and to just have the one red line version that goes out with, I guess, some of the recommended changes in the very beginning of the process. We will make changes at the meeting on the version. We'll format it, but we're not going to send it out. So it's going to be up to you and the public to keep your draft copy. Then we will send out that final marked up red line version at the final, when you're ready to make the recommendation, or that work session when we're all done with this chapter. So there's not this confusion. And then, that will be the version that goes to the city council with no changes. We'll format it, with Christopher here helping, with chapter 5. I think chapter 7 and 9 were me making a lot of those formatting errors on the chapter 7 and 9, just because it was just me. I think chapter 5, I don't think we had those issues so far. That went very smoothly. We had, but still, it's still a little confusing, right? It's still confusing. You have a different red line each time. So that's what we're proposing. Is everybody okay with that?
We already decided that.
Okay.
We agreed with that in our previous meetings.
Okay.
But I think that the biggest part of the confusion is when we're discussing something for purposes of taking action on it, people are looking at different versions. We need a clean version if we're going to recommend council adopt it. That is the point. We need a clean version, and everybody needs to review that clean version against their notes or whatever. We may need to look at that red line version if there's some confusion about, is this really what we agreed to? But I always have thought that the red line version should only be used for reference. The only way you can really read it properly is to look at a clean version at the time you're taking action. Does that make sense?
That's how I've done it in other jurisdictions. It's only been the clean version that's gone to a vote. And I would agree with that. I think the red line with all of the versions really create a lot of problems. So I would agree with that. So, but I do think at our last work session, we should have the final red line. And we should probably have it formatted. So just in case you have to bring it up, like happened today,
Well,
we
yeah,
can bring it up on the screen.
we're always
and show
gonna
you.
have it,
Yeah.
you know, Christopher or Nick, who's ever doing the on-site typing during our work sessions, will have it with him on his computer, right?
Yes.
And we can always put it on the screen.
Okay, I completely agree, and I think that's how we'll move forward. Even in August with the chamber, I mean, the council is just have the clean version with the motions.
I do think that the very best innovation that we learned in this process was doing the real-time changes during our work sessions. That really streamlined things tremendously.
But if you have any other ideas and with that discussion and at the 11th meeting, you know, August 11th, you know, I think this would be a time to discuss anything that makes this process better, just for you, for the public, for staff, for everyone. I think we're all ears, so.
I agree. Anybody have anything else? Is that it, Kurt?
That's it.
I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thank you.